Hey team, so the reason I'm making this video is because your final project for our 1-point perspective unit is going to be for you to write a word in 1-point perspective. One part of our grade is going to be related to 1-point perspective and the vocabulary that we learn, and the other part of our grade is going to have to do with media or the materials that we choose when we color or don't color or however we handle materials for this assignment. So one part of the grade will be vocabulary and perspective, and the other part of the grade will be materials and how you learn and then use them. So you are going to be following along with me on this video. You're going to be pressing, you're watching now, so this is play. When I tell you to press pause, boop, press pause and then draw, and then when you're done, you'll press play again, and then pause, play, pause. Let's get started. Okay, so here I have my piece of paper, and on this piece of paper I have some instructions written, and this is what I'm going to be following along. I will have these available for you so that you can use them, having one sitting there at your table with you if you want. So the first step says to make a horizon line. So when I make a horizon line in perspective, the first thing that I do is I line the edge of my ruler up with the side of my paper so that I know that my line is actually horizontal and not crooked. I am not drawing my line super dark. I actually drew it really light because most likely I'm going to be erasing that. Then step 2 says make a vanishing point. So I'm going to make a vanishing point here. So step 1, horizon line. Step 2, vanishing point. Please press pause and do the first 2 steps. All right, you're back from doing your first 2 steps. Well done. The next step is going to be to draw a shape somewhere on the paper. And for us on this assignment, the shape that you're going to be drawing is actually going to be a letter. So the first thing I want to say when you draw your shape is that for us right now doing letters, we are going to make them within guidelines. If you were doing like a triangle or a star, you wouldn't need guidelines, but for letters, you are going to want guidelines. And if you look here, you can see I made a curved guideline, a dotted middle guideline, and then the bottom guideline. And up here you can see guideline, dotted guideline, solid guideline. And I drew my guidelines super light, and the reason that I did that is because I am totally going to erase them later. I don't want anyone to know that I needed the guidelines, but they do need to be there. So back to here, what you would do is you can draw your word above the vanishing point and the horizon line or below. If you draw it up here above, you're going to be able to see the shadows under your letter. If you draw it down here below, you'll see shadows coming off of the top of your letter. Or not shadows, excuse me. The three-dimensional aspect, the shape turning into a form. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my ruler, and I'm going to draw really light guideline, making sure this is lined up here, really light guideline, and then a dotted guideline. Dot, 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 dot. Okay, so I drew super light here, and then I am going to write my word within this. If you're really skilled at writing in block letters, awesome, you can just start going for it. If you are still learning to do block letters, an awesome trick that I use all the time, and I especially used it when I was first learning, was to really lightly write your word in regular letters. I'm writing my name, Anne. So I just wrote my word in really light regular letters, and now in a darker outline, I am going to trace around it. Because I've practiced block letters so much, I don't actually need to do this anymore when I draw block letters. I would call myself a block letter champion. So what you are going to do now is you are going to pause this video and you are going to make guidelines and write your word. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, now that you've written your word, you are going to connect the corners and the edges of your word to the vanishing point. So the goal is for it to look like this. Every time we see a corner, boop, 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 we are going to make a line going down to the vanishing point. One fun thing to remember about this is that, well, I don't know if it's fun. Scratch that. one important thing to remember is to draw really light and don't always finish the lines. You just don't need to. So what I mean by that is if you look here, you can see I drew a line from this corner all the way down. But when you see this little guy here, I drew the line, boop, and then I stopped it. I don't need to keep drawing through the whole thing because I would end up having to erase that all anyway. Same with here. I started drawing it, boop, but then I stopped. That doesn't mean I didn't use my ruler. My ruler was here. I needed my ruler. The line goes to the vanishing point. I just didn't finish drawing it because it saves me some erasing. So go ahead and connect all of the edges and corners to your vanishing point. And you can do that now. One trick I want to show you. So if you just finished doing the vanishing point, the orthogonal lines to your vanishing point, great. If you didn't, if you got stuck, that's okay. I'm going to give you a couple more tips. So this letter here, this A, it's really obvious that this corner would go to the vanishing point. Got it. This corner would go to the vanishing point. Check, no big deal. But over here, there's no corner. So I get a little confused, like where do I make the line? Do I make it coming out of the middle, out of the top? Do I try to go down here? No, neither of those. So if you look at this corner, if I were to draw this line here, I would just end up having to erase it because it's getting overlapped by the N. Anything that the front shapes cover up, you wouldn't have to see the back of. So I would not have to make a line from here. I wouldn't make a random line from like here. What I like to do, and I did this all the time when I was learning, is I put my pencil on the vanishing point and I put my ruler here and I go beep 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 ding. As soon as I hit the edge of a curve on a letter, that is where I make my line. And what that's going to do is define the edge of this shape going back. And I actually messed up a little and I messed up my ruler, but because I've practiced being patient with drawing for so long, I'm going to overcome any frustration I was just feeling and try again. So that is what we are going for there. So if you haven't traced your letter or haven't created your orthogonals going to your from your letter to the vanishing point, go ahead and do that now. Press pause and write the lines. Well done. Okay, we're back. So our next step right now, we just connected the corners and edges of the word to the vanishing point. We drew light and we didn't always finish the lines. Our next step is to define the back of the form by using parallel lines on the back that match the lines on the front. And so what I mean by that is, and I'm going to keep working on this guy here, this front of this shape here is a horizontal line, so I would define the back using a horizontal line that matches it. And the way that I like to do this is by running my pencil over the original line almost to gain some muscle memory around what that looks like, and then I make the parallel line in the back. If the front of the shape does something, the back has to do it too. So if my front of the shape goes over, I make my back go over. If the front of the shape then goes up, then the back of my shape goes up in a parallel way. If the front of the shape goes over again, back, boop, it goes over. So you can see my front goes over, up, over. So the back should match over, up, over. The bottom of the A here and here are on a parallel plane. They're on the same plane rather, and so they are even with each other, so the back would be even with each other as well. So I'd make the back of this letter matching this side because the front matches there. Here I've got like a slightly angled line, so getting some muscle memory around that, and then I'm going in and drawing it again. And then the back of my A is now defined. A few mistakes that you might make would be making the line, the back, not parallel to the front. And what that might look like, and I'm going to kind of show you the no right now. Does that say no? No, I'm writing upside down. Okay, so see this line here? Getting some muscle memory. Let's say I didn't get the muscle memory and I just drew it like this. See how that's not parallel, so it looks weird? The same thing would happen down here. If I drew this back, not parallel to the front, it looks weird. Same thing here. If this is a line like this, that's horizontal, if I drew it like this, this N is going to start looking kind of goofy and weird. And so I could make the whole thing look super weird like this by not making the back parallel to the front. So that would be a no. Make sure that the front is parallel to the back. And then the final step, go ahead and define the backs of your letters, make them parallel to the front, pause and do that. And we're back. And the final step is just erasing the extra stuff. So I would go in now here and I would erase all these extra lines. And the nice thing is I drew all my lines that I knew I might end up erasing really light, or I didn't finish them at all, and so I don't have to erase them. So you would then go in and erase all the extra stuff and you'd be left with something like this. Go ahead and do your erasing and then sign your work and feel proud of yourself for trying and doing something hard. You are awesome.